What's up, everybody? Welcome to Line Movement. I'm Dieter Kurtenbach. This is the Sunday morning show where we break down everything betting, everything DFS, and to do it, as always, Joe Holka, Peter Overzet, joining us on the stream. But come on in, grab some hot cocoa and let's just enjoy week 8 of the NFL. What do you say? Joe, how you doing, baby? What's up?
I'm good, man. Today is kind of a disaster. Just kind of trying to make my way through 5 games. Look like have some crazy wind. Everyone wants to talk about the hashtag weather, so I'm sure we'll get into that. Interesting DFS slate that I think has changed quite a bit, even over the last 24 hours or so. So it'll be good to break it down with you guys. I always want to kind of get Peter's perspective on where ownership should be and that sort of thing.
Fantasy heartthrob, Peter Overzet, how you doing?
Yeah, no, if there's only one heartthrob on this show, and it's you after your Halloween photo from last night. So
it's cool. I paid for it. Don't worry about it. All right, let's talk about the weather. The Las Vegas Raiders have to go to Cleveland, and Cleveland in November, not ideal, not a place you usually vacation, and this game is going to be wild. We're talking about you were doing experiments in the outside, Pete. Like you're trying to figure out, what is wind. I mean, we're getting down to the real nitty gritty here. We're talking hashtag weather. Let's start with you, Pete, man. Like, what the hell do you expect out of Raiders and Browns in Cleveland, November 1st? People are freaking out.
Yeah, so there's all these different variables going on. We do know that wind is one of the main factors that can impact scoring. The question is, how bad does it have to get? There's also been some talk, too, about how stadium heights and how that wind is interacting can affect things at different levels. I think in general, it's smart to err on the side of not overweighting it. That said, in DFS on a main slate, we have lots of these kind of 50-50 decisions. You can go in multiple directions. I am specifically in this Vegas Cleveland game breaking ties against it. I have no problem with Kareem Hunt. I think he's still one of the best plays, but man, I liked Henry Ruggs 3 or 4 days ago, and I don't want to play Henry Ruggs in this game environment. I have other GPP plays I can do. I can play Marquise Brown, Chase Claypool. I don't need to play Henry Ruggs. So if it's even remotely close, I'm going away from it. And again, the thing about this Cleveland game, they're saying there could be gusts up to 45 miles per hour. We generally start overreacting at about 20 to 25, but we're talking the upper echelons of what this win could be.
Can they even play football in that weather? I'm sure they will, but probably good to play running backs. How do you feel about Darren Waller, though? If they're not going to throw it over the top, the Raiders, could they just dink and dunk with Darren Waller all day, Joe?
Yeah, Waller was one of my favorite plays of the entire week. And then kind of opening it up this morning, if his ownership is anywhere near 15-20%, I just don't really want to invest in the passing game in this game overall. At that point, I think that there's some better tight end options that we'll talk about. I guess one of the interesting things that I kind of came across, Chris Allen was talking about this on the ETR show this week, but actually the stadium construction matters in terms of wind. All this wind stuff, yes, 15 mile per hour. Sure, that stuff all matters. But what we really want to focus on is what is it actually like on the field. Dieter, you want to talk a little bit about the baseball, I guess, parallel you had there? Because I think that's super valuable. The wind inside the stadium, home runs, that sort of stuff. That's basically what we're talking about here for a guy like Ruggs, like Pete mentioned, these deep threats.
Well, okay, so I live in San Francisco, and everyone knows that you can't hit home runs to right field if you're a left-handed hitter in San Francisco's ballpark. And you go, why? Because the ballpark was built deliberately so that it'd be facing towards the bay, meaning that the wind, which comes in basically across the city, wouldn't have pushed balls in like they kind of do at Wrigley Field, right? The reason is because it catches the back of the stadium and then swoops around, but the stands end right before the right field wall. So all of that wind comes around the corner and pushes everything out to right center field. I'm thinking about whatever the hell they call that stadium in Cleveland, and there are a couple of gaps. And if nothing else, it's going to make kicking really weird. I mean, if 50 mile per hour with 40 mile per hour gusts, that's obviously going to make kicking weird. But in some places, you're better capable of withstanding it. If you were in Three Rivers Stadium, if you were in one of these colossal, massive, all-purpose stadiums that don't have any gaps, just a big Coliseum style area, then it probably wouldn't be that big of an issue because the wind's not getting in. It's not going to swoop down from the top. But some of these new stadiums, man, they got gaps left and right. And that means you got weird little wind tunnels and create cyclones and stuff. So I think that's probably best to just avoid, especially if it's not going to be priced into the market on DFS. And right now we're looking at a 1.5 point spread for the Browns We can talk about the betting aspects of this game. I know the DFS stuff is hot and heavy. They don't even have a total on blitzbet.eu for this game, which lends itself to reason. I don't know. Are we buying the Browns in any way, shape, or form? Like, are we going to be in on Cleveland? Because I don't know what the hell to make of this team. I liked what they were doing early in the year. I think Vegas is competent, though defensively horrendous. Typical John Gruden team. Like, I don't know. I'd stay away from this game in all facets. But how do you feel about it, Joe? What are you thinking in terms of the betting aspect?
I don't really want to like go near some of these games where there's like significant weather issues. I guess because I think it brings in a ton of variance in terms of like the spread and that sort of stuff. Like, yeah, like maybe you get on the unders if you think you can get one of these lines. But I don't really want this type of stress in my life to like be sweating what Derek Carr is going to be doing in 35-mile-per-hour winds.
Isn't that a typical stance, though, to not want to sweat what Derek Carr is doing? That's a tough way to live. I had to cover him for many years. It's very difficult on a day in, day out basis. Pete, you got any thoughts on this game? You laying down any action?
Yeah, probably not. I mean, I would probably just err on the under if I were to bet it. And
how
DFS,
low does that have to go? How low would that under have to be?
What you said that's off the board?
It's not even on the board. Yeah.
Because right now, like on some other books, I'm seeing around 51, which, man, that seems high. That seems really high too. And we know just by default, both of these teams want to establish the run. They want to hammer Josh Jacobs and Kareem Hunt. So you have everything pointing in that direction. So if you can get that under 50, I'm taking that.
I'm with you. I think that's the play. We'll see if Blitzbet puts it back up. Then we might play it. Let's talk Steelers and Ravens. This game being wasted in an early window. This should be the Sunday night game or Monday night game, or should have been on Thursday. Like, we needed this to be an island contest. Instead, it is part of the morass. But we'll all be watching it because it's the best game of the day. The Ravens favored by 4.5 right now. I don't have a total on Blitzbet. They're getting real weird. The weather is messing up Blitzbet's totals here, but let's talk about this game from the DFS perspective. Any plays in this one, Joe? What are you thinking? Pittsburgh and Baltimore. We know it's going to probably go a long way to deciding who the best team in the NFL is at the end of the season. But this week and this week only, who are you feeling?
Yeah, this is one that I think is super interesting from like a game stack perspective because it feels like one of these games that could go completely overlooked. There's some wide receiver options here that at least the ownership projections that I'm looking at look really low based on kind of what the ceiling of a guy like Chase Claypool brings to the table. Even like Marquise Brown, probably my favorite play in this game overall. It doesn't even look like his ownership's getting too out of control. So I think that those spots, I think there's a ton of different directions you can go. I think there's some cheap tight end options if you did want to kind of go to someone like Eric Ebron. We talked about Waller before, like Eric Ebron, Hunter Henry, these like cheaper options that are significantly a tier down in terms of salary. I think that's kind of where I'm going to live if I don't get up to someone like Kittle. So in this game, not a ton of interest overall at the running backs. I think that I guess you can probably make an argument that J.K. Dobbins at some point is going to take over, but I don't know if there's going to be enough volume there for me in this spot. The quarterbacks, Lamar is still pretty expensive. Do you have any interest in Lamar, Pete? I know you're on Hollywood as well.
Yeah, you know what? Like, just in a vacuum, again, we always know Lamar has the highest ceiling on the slate. I haven't found him getting into any of my lineups, partly because I don't think Russell Wilson is going to be so mega owned to the point where you're having to get direct leverage off of him. So if I have the money, I'm just generally playing Russell. But that said, I think what you're looking for here is probably a big rushing game from Lamar. I mean, their offensive line is going to have issues with this Steelers pass rush. So I think you see a lot of Lamar scrambling. I do like the Mark Andrews play. You hope they connect for a bomb. And this is a game that I do think is going to go way under owned. And I'm not stacking it, but I am picking those spots. I love Claypool. I love Marquise Brown. I like Ebron, like Joe said. And I mean, maybe the more we talk about it, you should find ways to stack this game because, as we'll discuss, there are some cheap punt plays in other games. You know, if you want to play Kendrick Bourne or DJ Dallas or Denzel Mims, you could afford this stack if you want to go that direction.
Pete, you love talking about the game script of this, and this is something that, from the betting perspective, very difficult to kind of wrap your head around because Baltimore can put up points with anybody in the NFL when they're right. But if they get behind and they have to pass, we just haven't seen Lamar take over a game and really win a game like that. And this feels like a playoff game, right? You got a division matchup, two elite teams. This feels like a game where Pittsburgh, who is elite against stopping the run, I think they have the best defense in the NFL in general, but stopping the run is where they really earn their salary. You don't have, you're going to go with Dobbins. You're going to go with Gus. I don't know. Is this a game that can get out of hand for Baltimore because they have to throw? And that's just not something that we've seen all that often.
I don't know. I find a hard time, envisioning one of these teams just boat racing the other. I do think it's interesting. You brought up Dobbins and Gus Edwards. Obviously, Mark Ingram's out. They're now saying that's more of a higher ankle sprain. He's going to be out for a while. The chat talking about Gus the Bus. Here, I do think it's an interesting situation. I think we all want J.K. Dobbins to come out of the bye and have this workhouse role. That's not happening. Gus Edwards is going to be the 1-for-1 replacement for Mark Ingram. That said, I do think Dobbins can get a few more touches than he did, similar to what we've seen play out with DeAndre Swift. I think that's what you're looking for from him. So I'm not going to play Dobbins or Gus in tournaments, even in tournaments. I just think there's too much opportunity cost this week at running back and other plays I like. But I can see the path to one of those guys having a nice game.
Any final thoughts on this game, Joe?
That's pretty much it. I think it's going to be a really fun game to watch from a DFS and betting perspective. A little bit more interesting wrinkles, I think, on other games.
Okay, let's talk about the Patriots and the Bills, and let's not spend too much time on it. Right now, the Bills are favored by 4.5. It's one of my best bets of the week. I just think that the Patriots are completely cashed, and it feels like Bill Belichick's throwing in the towel in some regards. Right now, the total on this one is, get this total, guys, 40.5 on BlitzBet. 40.5. So this is like a 1982 football game, and it's going to be sad to watch, but I'm in on Buffalo on this one. Are you playing anybody in this game with, again, a 40.5 point total? Let's start with you, Joe. All right. You were talking about Cam Newton before the show. Were you just pulling my chain there?
So the Cam Newton thing came through because I'll let Peter know this is one of our picks in the super contest this week, as we're trying to get to the top in a winner take all. I was actually doing a video for those to try and I guess let people know what we're on. And I decided against it because we're actively trying to be like very different now to get to the top in this winner take all. It's hard to make a case for the Patriots in this spot against the Bills. Obviously a very low total. I think the only way that Cam would be in play is if you were trying to get up to some really expensive kind of mini stacks in the middle of your lineup. Cam, obviously the rushing upside is 5,700 on DraftKings. You can pair him with some pretty cheap options overall, just because there's not a lot of talent here. But Jacoby Meyers at 4,500 on FanDuel, he's 3,500 on DraftKings. He's a guy that should be taking at least some of that Julian Edelman role kind of in the slot. That's kind of where you would attack Buffalo. So in theory, a cheaper stack here would make some sense. But this is a gross game. I don't know if I personally have the stomach for the Cam play, but I get it overall.
I don't. I mean, he can't throw to his right. His hand is all busted up. It's a real tough scene. Pete, talk some sense into this man over here.
Yeah, I don't want anything to do with this game. And in general too, like normally I'd be like, let's go back to the Josh Allen double stack. You got John Brown back fully healthy. Diggs, is getting the volume to set up for an eruption game soon. But in addition to the wind, I mean, you have to question, can the Pats pick up the pace enough in this game to where the Bills have to put the foot on the gas? And they're down to, they're the Walking Dead at wide receiver. They have no playmakers anywhere in that offense. I just don't see, like, when we look for these games that could soar over the total, we're like, where are the big plays coming from that just speed things up? I don't see any players on this team capable of doing that.
Would you take the under on 40.5, Pete?
I would probably stay away, but gun to my head in this weird scenario where some dude is like, you must make a play.
The president's daughter gets it unless you go ahead.
Okay, the under.
Okay. I think I'm with you. That's the worst part. Like, I'm actually I don't like Buffalo's defense. I think that it's legit bad, and that's weird and disappointing given the expectations of this season. But like, I don't know if the Patriots are going to score more than one touchdown. Like, I have a very hard time seeing them in the end zone twice, which is just absolutely wild.
Did I actually say erection instead of eruption?
Oh yeah, you definitely did. You definitely did. It was awesome.
Can confirm you did say it. Yes.
All right. I guess
we're off. We are off.
If your erection doesn't go away after 6 hours, definitely let a doctor know, guys.
I think it's 4. Okay, Vikings.
Is that from personal experience, Dieter?
I mean, listen, if you got it, flaunt it. Vikings and Packers, 6.5 points for the Packers. They're handing Minnesota. Please take these 6.5 points. We don't have a total on BlitzBet, so I probably shouldn't have mentioned it, but here we are. No total on BlitzBet yet. If you can catch it before, I don't know. The Packers are a much, much better team. The Vikings have kind of come to Jesus on the reality of this season for them. 6.5 is a lot for a division game, though, right, Joe?
Yeah, I think so. Another game where we're looking at some pretty significant wind, 20 to 26 miles per hour sustained. Looks like gusts all the way up to 40 miles per hour. So that's pretty rough for a guy like Justin Jefferson, who's going to live on the outside.
Right.
So I think that's a really tough price tag for him. I think that this game overall, we're probably just going to see some running on both sides of it. I think that the running backs are super interesting. For DFS, obviously, Jamal Williams still not priced up accurately. I feel like for Aaron Jones not being there, 6,100, he's still very, very underpriced. He's probably my favorite play in this game. The one that I want Peter's take on, though, is Devontae Adams. He's 8,800 on DraftKings. Is there a chance that, like, originally this week, I thought he'd be super chalky? Now I don't feel that way because I think a lot of people are going to avoid this game. What do you think about
Too hot to trot? Too hot to trot.
Levitan has dropped his ownership pretty significantly. I want to say he was up in the 28% range. He now has him down at 15%. So I think there's definitely merit to it. Devontae is also one of those guys where I wouldn't let the weather completely get me off him, just because we've seen him have a shallow A dot at times if they need to manufacture touches for him. And he's going to have a really good role around the end zone. And like Joe said, if the ownership is plummeting, he becomes a really good play. He's also kind of decent leverage on Jamal Williams. I think Jamal Williams remains one of the best plays on the slate. I'm going to have him in 80% of my lineups again. But if you're fading Jamal Williams, I think it's probably smart to have Devontae Adams in your lineup.
How do we feel about 7.5 receptions, the prop on BlitzBet for Devontae Adams this week? If we're going to go shallow A dot, you have to take the over, right, Pete?
Yeah, no, I think I lean the over there. Joe, what about you?
Yeah, I think it's pretty close, but like in this spot, like I think that's one that I would they can literally march up the field with him. You know what I mean? Like we've seen it before, him have these like 5-6 target drives. So yeah, I think I'd be on the over in this spot, even though it's a little bit scary for his downfield usage in this one.
And then how do we feel about Dalvin Cook? He's got the groin, but he's expected to play pretty much all the snaps. He's the bell cow there. 73.5 rushing yards in this game. If the wind is going to be a main factor, and Minnesota is going to move the ball, I imagine they have to run it a bunch, and they're going to give it to Cook a bunch, even with that injury. 73.5. How you feeling about it, Joe?
Yeah, just looking at our NFL data table at linemovement.com, we've got him around 20 touches right now, pretty close to 5 receptions through the air as well. So I think that, like we saw the Schefter bomb come through, that he should be getting a full workload here. So if Dalvin Cook goes a little bit, under appreciated in the DFS streets, just because this game isn't going to be as popular as I originally thought, I think Dalvin is the type of pivot in tournaments. If you think you're going to get him sub 10%, that makes some sense. I think there's some better plays on the board overall in that price range, like even just dropping down to Kareem Hunt or Jamal Williams. But in tournaments, I think he's in play.
Any thoughts on it, Pete?
Yeah, I was reading kind of the quotes from the team too, just to see if we could get a hint on if he would be limited at all. And it sounds like they fully expect him to be good to go. Zimmer, who's normally kind of tight-lipped about this stuff, said they expect him to get his full workload. Even earlier in the week, Zimmer was like, he's good to go. So I'm feeling good about Dalvin Cook. I agree. He's not going to find his way into a ton of my lineups, but I think he is a really nice pivot from that chalk in the Jamal Williams, Derrick Henry, Kareem Hunt range.
I didn't get a play, I don't think, from either of you guys. Are you taking Minnesota in this one? Let's go with you, Joe. How are you feeling about the actual betting aspect of this?
Yeah, I think it's the Packers for me. I just think they're a better team at basically every level. This Minnesota team, it feels like it's not quite like what Houston was going through when Houston it felt like just the winds came out of the sails a little bit. But I think Minnesota's well on their way to that point of just like being really frustrated with their lack of talent overall. So I'm in on the Vikings dumpster fire, I think.
Well, do you think they're going to turn on Kirk Cousins at some point? He's too corny not to get turned on. That's just a main fact. Are Kirk Cousins look-alike, Peter? Overzet, how are you feeling about
now I'm a Kirk. I normally get Ryan Tannehill. Now I'm getting Kirk.
You're like an amalgamorph of them. You just put those two guys together. You're the love child of Tannehill and Cousins. You're a very rich man. Very rich.
Now I'm so distracted by this Cousins comp. What was your question?
Are you betting on him to win?
Am I betting on Kirk Cousins to win? No. I like the Green Bay side. No, I like the Packers here. I think they have a really nice offensive line mismatch too. I think they're going to be able to control this game on the ground. And I just think they're the better team. And Minnesota has kind of played above their head, in my opinion, in a lot of these spots.
Okay. Jets and Chiefs, 20.5 point spread. 20.5.
It's up to 20.5. I saw it was at 19.5 earlier in the week. That's crazy.
It's 20.5. And it's 20 like everywhere. We did a little digging. There have been 13 games since like the 70s that have had a 20-point spread. 10-3, the underdogs in those games in terms of covering. So I feel like we've reached a point where you almost have to take the Jets. At the same time, it's the Jets and it's the Chiefs. And if there's one team that can just put 28 on the board in like, I don't know, 3 minutes and then coast the rest of the way, it's the Kansas City Chiefs. So let's talk about who the best plays are for the Kansas City Chiefs, because there sure as hell ain't one on the Jets, and how we feel about 20.5. And we'll start with you, Kirk.
So I think this is one of the most interesting spots on the entire slate, because you're getting the Chiefs team here that has an implied total that's saying they're going to score 5 touchdowns in this game, and they're priced affordably. And then on top of it, the bring back options are very cheap. If you want to mess around with Denzel Mims at 3,200, Braxton Barrios at 3,500. Of course, we got Perriman and Jamison Crowder out. So this game sets up for a convenient stack. It sets up for a ton of points. The game script sets up for the Jets to be throwing in garbage time. This is a game I'm very interested in. Joe, I'm curious your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Denzel Mims is the guy that I'm gravitating towards for savings on most of my teams, right? So it feels like a week, and we talked about this with Harmon earlier in the week, that there's so many cheaper wide receiver plays. Some weeks we get like none, but we have like probably 4 options down close to the stone min. Denzel Mims is one of those guys. Just going over to playerprofiler.com, Chris Godwin is his comparable. So like Harmon's saying that this guy is a legit baller. It's not the situation where we're just going to run out just some random guy from the Jets because he's cheap and because he's basically on the field. I think that Denzel Mims could be a part of this rebuild for sure. So he's like the clear bring back, because all the KC guys are pretty expensive. I think that this stack overall could go under own, just because the narrative is, oh, they don't really need to keep the foot on the pedal. But like what Peter said, maybe they drop 3-4 touchdowns before like the fourth quarter, and it doesn't even matter at that point. You can probably even bring it back with 2 guys on the Jets if you think that the game script's going to be there the whole game. It opens up your entire roster to still be able to get in some of these other running back plays around an expensive stack, basically.
It sounds to me as if you guys are taking both the over and the Jets in this one. I mean, if you guys are talking about Denzel Mims, like you have to take the Jets in 20.5, right? Like it's just principle at that matter. Okay, so you're both in on that. Talk to me about Braxton Barrios for a second, because it seems like he's the only receiver that Sam Darnold trusts under any circumstances, and they've actually hooked up a couple of times. Like, is Braxton Barrios a legit play this week?
I think so. I don't think he has that ceiling. Again, he's your Randall Cobb. He's your Cole Beasley. He's the 1-for-1 for Jamison Crowder. He had 8 targets for, on 6 catches, 50 yards last week. So I think he could rack up a nice PPR day. And if you do think the Chiefs are just going to overwhelm them, like he's going to be the safety valve guy. That said, we've been talking on the shows this week. On Thursday, we mentioned, Denzel Mims is a truly upper echelon athletic freak in this league. And if you're looking for the big play, if you're looking to take off the condom and raw dog it in your DFS lineups, Mims is the guy. I hope your erection only lasts 4 hours.
If it's Mims, it might actually last. It's 4 hours of football that you're going to have to watch to see if it pans out. All right, I'm over this game. Let's talk about Titans and Bengals. Tennessee 7.5 point favorites. The total in this one is 49.5 on blitzbet.eu. We'll get to our Ryan Tannehill lookalike here in a moment. Let's start with you, Joe.
Yeah,
Titans got to get back, right? Like this is their week, right?
I don't know, man. Derrick Henry week every week that I don't play him, basically. So
okay, let's start with Derrick Henry. 101.
I think we have to. That's the whole point of this entire game, is that Peter reminds me last week. I'm like, bro, we got Derrick Henry at 1%. This is going to be the best. We got leverage, all this stuff. He gives us this nice little like 80-yard line. I was like, Peter, where's my 90-yard touchdown, man? Like where everyone tells me I'm going to get this 90-yard touchdown because it doesn't matter if he catches passes. Never comes. Peter's like, no, you don't understand. That only happens when he's 30% owned. So basically, if he's going to be the chalk this week, he should be all in on the Derrick Henry chalk. I don't know if I'll get there, but I still pretty convincingly prefer Kamara in that range. But Peter, are we playing Derrick Henry for our Tilt Space team this week? I don't know what to do.
Yeah, so we're going to build a few teams. We're also in the Mega Millionaire, we should mention. We could legitimately, if we run hot, have a sweat at $1 million this evening. So tune in, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. We're back to our normal start time. I have a feeling that Derrick Henry is going to make his way into one of our lineups. I think we'll probably, his ownership's going to come in around 28-30%. If he's in one out of 4 or 5 of our lineups, that's going to have a slightly underweight on the field. And that's where I feel comfortable with. And Derrick Henry, I think he's tricky like usual. Like I prefer Jamal Williams and Hunt because I think their role is a little bit more secure, but everything sets up great for Henry here. Like I can't deny that, but I'm with Joe. If I don't play him, he is going to shove it down my throat like he always does.
God damn, man. You're really killing it this morning with the entendres. Let's go.
That one wasn't even intentional.
Well, listen, those are the best ones. 101.5 rushing yards. We're taking the over prop on Henry today. We have to on principle at this juncture, right? Like if you're consider playing him in the lineup, you have to go over 101.5 right? Like just give me some nods here.
This is the thing about Henry. I would much rather do that kind of proposition in DFS where the upside is limitless. Right. In a prop, it's like this binary thing. If he goes for 200, okay, I clear that again. So I'm actually the under in the prop market. And if you want to at least get some upside in DFS.
All right, how about me also?
Under, okay. Sure. Okay, so he's definitely going over now. And then Tannehill, this is producer Jordan loves giving the most random ass, but like he loves quarterback rushing yard props. It's his favorite thing ever.
These are
good props.
Stand up for yourself.
This is how you make money. Listen to me.
Okay, well here's one that Jordan loves. 11.5 rushing yards for Ryan Tannehill in this game. Can Cincinnati get enough pressure to force Ryan Tannehill to run like twice? I don't know. How are we feeling about that one, Pete?
Yeah, I think, again, this is another game that has some of those weather concerns too. Normally, I would say, man, Tannehill, a double stack to Jonnu and A.J. Brown looks like pretty nice leverage on the Derrick Henry thing. If you do fall into that camp of weather doesn't matter, people are overreacting, this doesn't have the 45-mile-per-hour gusts like we're talking in Cleveland. I kind of like that angle. And I mean, Tannehill just has been rock solid. Like week after week, they're one of the most efficient teams in the red zone. So I'm still not opposed to that angle.
Is weather real, Joe? Is it a thing?
Weather is a thing for sure. What'd you say the Tannehill line's at?
11.5 rushing yards.
I'm over on that. I got him around 15 right now. So I think that, if there is a little bit more wind, maybe scrambles around a little bit. Jordan, where were you at on that one, man?
The way I look at quarterback rushing is that if the sources that I'm looking at have it within five or so, plus or minus, either way, I'm taking it no matter what. I look at some pressure statistics as well, but you're talking about a potential one play instance happening, a scramble here. And all of the projections that I have right now, I'm currently using Pro Football Focus and a couple other prop markets, but the lowest rushing projection that I have for Tannehill is 11.5, and that's 4 yards lower than the second lowest that I have. So, I mean, to me, when I see those things, I just sprinkle like $20, $15 here and there. And then I really love on DraftKings, if you're gambling on a regulated market in the States currently, you're going to be getting offers. I get offers every single day to boost things. This morning, I got a parlay boost for 50%. I mean, I just, you have to take advantage of those things, in my opinion. Thoughts on that, guys?
No disagreement there. If you're getting offers, take them.
Yeah, why am I not getting these offers? People will message me and they're like, "Hey, my DraftKings rep just offered me this, I'm like, I don't get this crap.
You have an individual DraftKings rep.
Well, if you're a high enough role, I bet Joe has a rep.
I have a rep for fantasy, but not for betting. And the offers that just to make sure I wasn't flexing on them, the offers that we're getting, everybody in the state of Colorado also got in a certain degree or not. So, and Peter is flexing the FanDuel puck over here. So
this is the only kind of stuff sites give me are, FanDuel stress balls. That's all I get. You guys get $100 off in entries.
Yeah. Oh, man.
All right, Colts and Lions. Colts and Lions. The Colts are favored by 3.5 in Detroit. The total in this one is 48.5. While Tannehill tries to figure out his focus. Let's go to you, Joe. I don't know. I don't like the Colts, but I don't like the Lions, and this game makes me sad. So how do you feel about it?
This game is interesting because it is in a dome, right? So like this is one where you
no weather.
any of this weather stuff. So I think that's positive. I think that Peter brought this up earlier in our chat, just the Jonathan Taylor and like kind of a mini correlation with Kenny Golladay, I think is somewhat sharp in this one. This is one where I'm probably going to be in that range of like, if I'm playing in DFS, it's going to be like a mini correlation because I don't really want to play either of the quarterbacks. Is there either of these guys that you'd want to play, Pete, or are you mostly on the mini stack train with me?
So initially I was just on the mini stack train because I do think there's lots of interesting pieces. And then I was like, there's lots of interesting pieces. I think I will not play Phillip Rivers. Like Leone sent a lineup over that included Rivers, like wave, but I will play Matthew Stafford. And here's the reason no one wants to play Marvin Jones. I don't want to play Marvin Jones. I think most people agree Kenny Golladay is a good play. My thought is maybe just use DeAndre Swift with Stafford and Golladay. You know, he has such a good pass catching role. They use him in the red zone where they throw to him. So that's kind of how I'm thinking. I'm warming up to using Stafford because, again, this is our only dome game on the week. This is going to be a fast track environment. There's explosive playmakers in this game. I'm starting to really come around on it.
Pete, would you play Swift and Golladay on the same team, or you think that's a pretty decent negative correlation?
No, that's what I was just saying. I think you could use them together just because his pass catching role is pretty strong and he's getting so many high value touches in the red zone where we've seen him score, passing touchdowns multiple weeks. So yeah, you need to win that tournament. You need Stafford to throw a touchdown to Swift, but I think that's well within the range of outcomes.
I always got to get my Swift take from you because this is a guy that's a little bit outside of my comfort zone with touches. So, but I have messed around with some little mini stacks to this game. You probably can't play Swift and Taylor on the same team though, or can you? Pete?
Sorry, I was working with Jordan here. I was trying to figure out what's going on with my mic thing.
Oh, no. I was more just saying, if you are going to not have Stafford on this and you go with a little bit of a mini stack like Swift, Golladay, do you still feel like you can have Taylor on the other side of that and have both running backs in this game?
Yeah, I probably, the only way I would do that is if I'm like overstacking it, Right. And it is tough too, because I was messing around with this where I think Trey Burton is one of the better and only viable, cheaper tight end plays on this slate. So if you're trying to save money, I think doing something like a Burton Swift might make sense. If I'm getting past that, I'm going to probably want to have one of the quarterbacks because you're just making a bet on this game really popping off.
Mm-hmm. So we feel good about the total. What are we thinking there? 48.5. It's an interesting line. We'll start with you.
Over. I like this game for points a bit, which is scary because I don't normally gravitate towards these teams in general. But yeah, I think that's a reasonable one in a week where I think we're adjusting a lot of these lines for weather. I still think this is one where we could see kind of a sneaky shootout that we might not be interested in on a regular week, but I have some interest this week for sure.
There's our boy. What are you thinking about this total here, Pete?
Yeah, I think I would take the over too. I think people are just, I think, generally subconsciously down on the Lions because it hasn't all come together for them yet. But again, I just love this game environment. And I think there's lots of playmakers here where this could really soar over the over.
Okay, this is a tricky one because we have a new quarterback in play. Rams and Dolphins. It's 2 a time. The Rams are 3.5-point favorites on the road in Miami, 45.5-point total on blitzbet.eu. I don't even know what to do with it because the upside for Tua is so high, but it's also a first-time quarterback against Aaron Donald and a pretty good Rams defense. I think we can expect certain things from the Rams offense. I would not go all in on them on the premise of I think Miami's defense is pretty damn good and they're going to have some juice today at home. But we'll start with you, Pete. What are you thinking about this game? You got any plays?
Yeah, I have a couple one-off plays I like. I like Cooper Kupp in this game. He's going to go way under the radar at 6,500. I think Myles Gaskin is still way underpriced. I just saw the Dolphins inactives come through. Jordan Howard inactive again. I mean, this is Myles Gaskin's backfield. So at 5,200, yeah, I don't love how it sets up with their offensive line versus the strong Rams pass rush. But the thing is with these guys, we have outs if they catch passes. We know if they go down 21-0, Gaskin's still going to be on the field catching passes. So those are the two guys that I've kind of looked at. And Tua, there's a lot of uncertainty here in this first start. I don't love the spot for them. Then on the other hand, you have some trends going where you got the West Coast team traveling to the East. I think LaMarca mentioned that on Thursday. So this is a funky game, but I think, when you toss in the factor that there's no weather concerns here, like this is going to be a good game environment. I don't mind sprinkling in some plays here.
What do you think about it, Joe?
Gaskin was really the only one that I've been considering so far, which I guess won't be a super big surprise to most people. But yeah, Peter makes a good point. Like this game's going to be relatively underowned and one that we don't have to worry about like the weather at all. So I think that's interesting. I might have to look into this one a little bit deeper after we jump off. But I mean, as of right now, I think that Gaskin makes sense. I'll say this about Mike Gesicki. They've kind of already said multiple times that he's been running with Tua throughout practice, throughout the entire season, just try and build that chemistry a little bit more. So Gesicki at 4,900, if you get him like sub 5%, I think that's reasonable.
I think we already know where you stand with this one, Pete, but Cooper Kupp 5.5 receptions is the line for today on the prop. Joe, what do you think about it? Does he get over 5.5 receptions today?
Cooper Kupp. So I've got him right at about 5. So I'll go under if it's 5.5. I think it's close.
All right. I guess, Pete, you're buying the upside of a Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, that's another. I mean, that's a good line. Again, I'll stick with my convictions and say Cooper Kupp goes over that today.
It's going to be a weird one. I think that one is going to be this game in general, and this line is something to keep an eye on because it could be very indicative going forward. This is one of those games where with uncertainty, and then we get certainty at the end because there's a final score, and then there's complete overreactions. It's like week 1 all over again for the Miami Dolphins. So interested to see how that one plays out. Chargers and Broncos. I presume there's weather. Let's go to our man on the ground, Jordan. What do we got going on in Denver today? He's not there. Okay. Chargers, Broncos.
It's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day. There's nothing going wrong. All the snow is melted. No marine layer. No plexiglass. No different wind. Everything's good in the Denver streets.
All right. So Justin Herbert should be able to throw it very, very far because there's thin air and he has a big arm. The Chargers are 3.5-point favorites in Denver. AFC West showdown. And the total on this one is 44.5. Low total, given that the Chargers have been able to put up points this year. I guess the Broncos haven't. So that makes some sense. 2 young quarterbacks going at it. And we'll start with you, Pete. Are you buying the upside on either of these offenses? You got anybody in your lineups?
Well, definitely from a DFS perspective, this game's kind of interesting because we're going to have one really chalky piece in Keenan Allen, and then everything else is going to be pretty under the radar. I mean, one of my favorite plays this week is Hunter Henry at tight end. I think things set up really nicely for him. A lot of those factors that we like to see line up in the air yards by low model means he's been getting volume. This is a pace up game. We don't have weather concerns. My issue here is if I do double stack Justin Herbert with Keenan and Hunter Henry, which I think is perfectly viable, it's hard to do the bring back because the only play I like on Denver is Noah Fant. And now I'm in this situation where am I going to play 2 tight ends, which generally isn't something we want to do unless one of those is the really elite guy. So that's kind of my issue with this. I guess the running backs are a little bit interesting on the Chargers at their price points, but probably unnecessary. Joe, what are you doing with this?
Yeah, I'm pretty much with you, man. I think that Keenan Allen being like drastically underpriced at 6,200 just like kind of stands out like a sore thumb. Top 5 and weighted opportunity rating over the last 4 games, so he's gonna be super chalky. I like Herbert and his upside. I wish he was a little bit cheaper personally. I'm with you on Hunter Henry. I already have a bunch of Hunter Henry spots this week, kind of in the early building of today, so I think it's interesting. I don't have like a clear bring back on Denver. I think Noah Fant maybe if you're trying to get like a lower owned guy in this mid range, but I don't really want to play 2 tight ends on a team. So do you have any other bringbacks on Denver that you like, Pete, outside of Noah Fant?
Jerry Jeudy, perhaps?
Maybe. But
I do think if I did pull the trigger on one, that would be the guy. And he's also in this interesting price range where in like the 45 to 5,200 range is like such a dead zone this week to where Jeudy would maybe be a nice fit. There, I probably don't have the stomach for it. But again, like we know he's talented. We know that they're banged up elsewhere. So I don't mind that.
It sounds like we want to take the over. I mean, we're not in on Denver here. Like nobody has this great feeling about Denver, but 44.5 is a rather low total here. We all going to take the over and prosper together here?
I would take that over. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cool. We're very in line right now, which is scary. So maybe it's, I guess, a chance to go on the other side.
I'm going to have to reevaluate some stuff when this is all said and done. Chargers 3.5 is I don't know. It's a division matchup. I would say that that's a fair line, but they're on the road. It's the division. Still got a young quarterback. Who knows? Maybe today's the day that Drew Lock looks like an actual NFL quarterback. Pete, I don't know. Do you have a bet on this?
Yeah, I think I'm probably leaning Chargers. I just think they're the more well-rounded team, the more explosive team. We saw how Herbert now has all these weapons at his disposal with this Jalen Guyton and Mike Williams. And I mean, just big plays coming left and right. So yeah, I lean toward taking the Chargers to cover that spread.
Go Chargers, go. Joe, are you with us?
Yeah, I think so. I'm a big Herbert fan overall, so I'm with you guys.
Okay. We all agreed on everything there. I'm a little bit scared. Sorry about that. We try to create controversy, but we're not doing a very good job at it.
Saints, if you guys want to see controversy, you need to get a private feed to when Leone and I start arguing about things here in about 20 minutes when we build our lineups. That's when the fireworks are going to fly.
We got to stream that like once this year at some point.
You son of a bitch. Saints and Bears. It's going to be in Chicago. That's a place where wind gets weird. The Saints play in a dome full time. So I might be in on Chicago here, getting 3.5 from the Saints. Again, this is a game that doesn't have a total on blitzbet.eu because, well, wind and things of that nature. I don't know, though. Nick Foles is still the quarterback of the Bears, and it was so bad on Monday. It was so bad. Was that Monday? Yeah, it was Monday. It was garbage. And the Saints at least know what they are. So talk to me about this one, Joe. Are there any Bears plays that you can stomach? And what are you doing with Kamara this week?
I'm playing Kamara as much as I can for sure. Even at that price tag, I do prefer him to Derrick Henry on DraftKings. So probably be on the other side of that if you like money. Darnell Mooney at 3,500. I think if you wanted to go to the Chicago side is interesting. Like I said, there's just so many cheap wide receivers this week. I think he's in play. If you get him sub 5%, that's a nice little bonus there. Peter, I have to, the daily or weekly, whatever it is, conversation. Can I play Latavius Murray on any lineups for leverage if people are just going to like attack the Le'Veon Bell thing? Like, how is Latavius any different?
Yeah, my thought on that is I generally like it when Kamara's ownership is really rolling out of hand. Like we saw in some of our contests last week, he was 75, 80%. So the leverage is just so clear. I don't think it's going to get to that this week because people want to play Hunter. Now I can't talk. Kareem Hunt, Jamal Williams, and Derrick Henry. So I just don't think you have that direct leverage as much. And I don't like this game. I mean, it's such a low total. I don't like Drew Brees on the road in general. I mean, the one thing that broke in favor of this game is Allen Robinson is good to go after emerging from the concussion protocol. I don't mind the Mooney punt play, but I'd rather just punt with a Mims in a better game or Kendrick Bourne in a better game we're about to talk about. So I like the defenses for DFS in this. I think you can play both of them here. So this is probably a true stay away game for me outside of Kamara.
Let's deal with two of these Jordan props here. David Montgomery, 4 receptions. 4 is the line. We're not even getting the hook. 4. How are we feeling about that one? We'll start with you, Joe.
4 receptions, you said?
Yeah, 4 receptions.
Yeah, that's pretty nice actually. I'm seeing like 3.5 in some spots also, so that's like pretty close to where my projection's at. For the under, I think I'd probably go the under in this one though. I'm just not a David Montgomery guy overall, so I think that's pretty nice value actually
as well.
Especially if it's 3.5 in some spots.
Yeah, nobody in Chicago likes David Montgomery. I can attest to this firsthand. It is really rough to watch. The Bears have no rushing offense, and if there's one city that really enjoys a good rushing offense, it's my hometown of Chicago. All right, Pete, how are we feeling about 4 receptions for David Montgomery, the most hated man in all of the Windy City?
Yeah, gosh. I don't know. That sounds fair. I'd probably take the under just on my blanket David Montgomery dislike as well.
Okay, we all like Alvin Kamara, though, and 6.5 receptions for him in this game. Let's go with you, Joe. You're touting him. What have we got?
Over for sure. All the overs on Kamara every week that Michael Thomas isn't in. Obviously, they have a bunch of injuries overall. So yeah, give me all the Kamara overs. Even though like it's not easy to build Kamara teams with some of these stacks today. So like I guess this has been a tougher week in roster construction than we've had in a while. But I do want to be overweight on Kamara. Hopefully, I get there.
Joe,
come on, give me some controversy.
Joe, what do you have Montgomery at? I haven't seen him projected for anywhere over 3.5, and that's why I'm really targeting that line because I'm looking at like 3 or 4 different projection sources, and I don't see a single one over 3.5. So I'm hitting that under all day, baby.
Yeah, I kind of like aggregate a bunch of different ones together, and so I'm with you. I'm at like 3.3 right now, which is still far lower. If you can find 4 receptions, I like that quite a bit.
All right, Pete, what are we thinking about Kamara this week? We've already heard.
That line to me for his reception prop makes it seem like Michael Thomas is playing. Like that is what the fair line would be. But man, they have just funneled him targets when Michael Thomas is out. And these other guys haven't proven to be good weapons for them. So, I mean, he's going to be their whole offense. I like that. I think that's off by 1, if not 2 receptions.
Cool. It looks like Thomas is straight up out with the hamstring. So there's that. Do we want to do Peter Overzet's inactive corner?
Yeah, I've been keeping an eye on it. The only ones that were kind of really hanging in the balance, Tyler Higbee was a true game time decision. Yeah. He is going to play. Everett could have been intriguing as a pump tight end if he didn't go. I haven't seen anything else. I mean, people were I mentioned Burton earlier. Mo Alley Cox is active. So they now have 3 tight ends active this week. It doesn't really scare me that much because we've seen them all active with Burton leading the charge there. But and then I saw another one too where people were wondering if Tyler Ervin being active kind of dinged Jamal Williams because he was out last week, which we knew then meant he was going to get all the passing work. I think you could probably just put it down a tick. But that said, he was already one of the best points per dollar plays on the slate. So I don't think too much changes.
Cool stuff. Let's talk about a game that's going to be good. I don't know if any of these other games are going to be interesting at all, which means that Red Zone's actually going to be wild today because that's just how it works. And this game's going to suck. But it would stand to reason that 49ers and Seahawks will be interesting, if for no other reason than the Seattle Seahawks have never played a normal game, and it's a division matchup. Let's talk about the DFS side of this, though, because right now we'll get into the 3.5 point spread for Seattle in a second. But I've heard Kendrick Bourne's name mentioned multiple times on this show already, and that is just not something I expected to happen this morning. So Peter Overzet, explain yourself to America and the world. Why the hell are you spouting Kendrick Bourne's name on this hallowed program?
Yeah, I wish I could just say, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, but unfortunately they don't give us $100,000 salary on DraftKings. So this is by far, I think, the best game on the slate, and we have to find some salary savings within it if we want to stack this game up. I think there are 2 interesting salary savers. I mean, Kendrick Bourne, he's nothing exciting. We can get your boots on the ground take about him. The other guy, though, stepping in with Deebo Samuel out. Right. The thing about Bourne is in years past, he's had like an interesting touchdown roll, end zone roll there where he's caught some of these touchdowns. The other guy I'm super interested in is DJ Dallas. So a quick recap on how this has gone down with the Seattle backfield this week. Neither Chris Carson, Homer, or Carlos Hyde practiced until Friday. Homer did some individual drills, but Hyde and Carson didn't practice all week. The team is saying that Carson is a true game time decision. Everything I'm reading from the doctors with this mid-foot sprain, they say this is a super tough injury to come back through and would be really painful to fight through. So I'm personally not buying this with Chris Carson. I don't think Carlos Hyde is going to play with a vet with a hamstring injury. So what I think we're going to get, I think we're going to get a limited Travis Homer working in for some snaps. And I think we're going to get DJ Dallas as the lead back. The team was even not letting him get all of the practice snaps on Friday in hopes of protecting him for this game. And so I think the 4 p.m. start, the Chris Carson game time decision is providing really nice cover for the DJ Dallas play at 4,000. And you can do swaps. Like if you have him in the flex and you get nervous that Carson plays, he suits up, good. You can pivot to Kendrick Bourne if you'd like. Yeah. There's stuff you can do. So I'm really leaning on going heavy on DJ Dallas because I think he's a smash at 4,000 if Carson doesn't play.
I like your reasoning. I think you're all over it here. Joe, do you buy anything that he's selling?
That's a way to get different in this game for sure. I've been trying to figure out, because everyone's looking at the same thing we are right now. Like all of these games are so scary with all the weather, and then you're just like, oh, cool, Russell Wilson, that looks okay. So I'm with you, trying to get if that stack ends up being super super popular, like the mid stakes, high stakes, whatever it is, that's a way to get different. I guess I'll kick it back to Pete. What's his if I guess in living in the Peter Overzet world where Carson just isn't a factor, doesn't get into whatever it is, what do you think his floor of touches is? Is this a guy that we can plug in for 12? Is this a guy that you think is if all goes well, he can hit that 17, 18 touches? What about that?
Yeah, and this is the thing to me. If Homer was healthy this whole time, I do think it would be closer to like an even split. But like Homer's dealing with this bone bruise, I believe, on his knee. They wanted to test him out. I think he's still truly questionable this week. So like otherwise, I would worry about that more. But I think DJ Dallas, if Carson is inactive, I think he's going to get 15 touches. And the other thing about DJ Dallas is if you go look at his, comps to other stuff, he profiles like the Seattle running back. He looks like the Thomas Rawls, the Chris Carson, a guy that can run and catch passes. He came in at the end of last game and caught a couple of balls. So I'm not worried about him being like truly game script dependent. And I also think he's going to get all of the touchdown or goal line work, no questions asked. So I think I'm higher than everyone else on DJ Dallas, but I'm in on it at 4,000 for sure.
I love it. I think it makes a lot of sense. The Kendrick Bourne thing is interesting too, because the Niners, without Deebo Samuel, might have to change up their offense and go to like more 11 personnel. And that's like the Kendrick Bourne sweet spot. He was a great third down receiver last year, as you mentioned, Pete, like gets a lot of work in the red zone. When they go 3 wide receivers, they want Kendrick Bourne on the field. He's going to get snaps, obviously, because they want to be in 2 wide receiver sets. And so he's going to get snaps on the outside, I imagine. That's a funky game. I don't know. There might be too much risk in that. As much as we're talking about the risk with DJ Dallas and all the moving parts there, like I don't know what Kyle Shanahan's offense is going to be. The last 2 weeks, he's been run, and he's been running with a wide receiver as one of his top guys because, Jeff Wilson and things of that nature. I don't know what their offense is going to look like. I do think that Seattle's defense is soft, but they're talented. I don't know. I think there's too much risk in Kendrick Bourne. He's just such boom or bust. Whereas with DJ Dallas, at least he's getting the red zone touches. So he could get you on the board, even if he only has 3 carries. So there's something to be said for that. How do we feel about the spread in this game? 3.5 for Seattle seems fair, if maybe a bit disrespectful, because listen, the Niners are a good team, but they've also kind of gotten away with it. Their wins are against, let's count them up here. Like they beat the Rams. That was impressive. But then, congrats, you beat the Giants, the Jets, and the Patriots. I mean, really hold a parade in San Francisco for that one. 3.5 points, Seattle Seahawks. How you feeling about it, Joe?
Yeah, I think this after what happened to the Seahawks last week against the Cardinals, I think they could come in here and just put the hammer down on the 49ers overall. So I'm a believer in the Seahawks this year. I know their defense, there's obviously some struggles there, but when you have Russell Wilson to kind of pick up the slack, I think that this game shapes up really well for points. I think the Seahawks cover here. I think that, I don't know if it's quite disrespectful, like you said, but I do think I'm on the Seahawks side.
It's a little disrespectful. How do we feel about it, Pete?
Yeah, I'm with you. I just think the Seahawks are a much better team overall. And as we know, talking with you, Dieter, I mean, these Jimmy Garoppolo, he's the two-face. You don't know which version you're getting. We know what we're getting in Russell Wilson. Like there's zero questions. So I'm going to lean with the Seahawks here. And again, we know Kittle and Ayuk are solid talents, but again, I just think Seattle has the playmakers, the more well-rounded offense in the way, even if San Francisco gets up early, like the Seahawks are never going to be out of it, and they're going to keep throwing and they're going to get back in it. So I'm with you. I think the line is a little bit disrespectful. Give me the Seahawks.
What are we doing on George Kittle 6.5 receptions? Over, under? Start with you, Pete.
That's a big number. He's been kind of boomer bust. This is almost like the Derrick Henry thing all over again. He has the upside to just absolutely soar over that. I like Kittle a lot in this game. I always want to break ties to game environments that have Seattle in it. They just speed everything up. They allow for more plays, and no one needs me to sell them on Kittle as a talent. I'll take the over on that.
What do you think about it, Joe?
I would just say stay away based on projection, but what Peter said, I definitely want to be on that side of it, of this game environment overall. So gun to my head, I'm on the over for Kittle, but I don't feel great about it from like a median perspective, projection perspective.
I like it because I'm not sure what Jamal Adams is doing in this game, but even if he's in there, he's not going to be the Jamal Adams that we all know. Garoppolo loves throwing over the middle. That's where Kittle lives, and that's where the Seattle defense is most susceptible, in my opinion. So I think it really does script out pretty well for a big George Kittle game, which, let's be real, the 49ers kind of need that when you don't have Deebo Samuel out there and you're on your, I guess they're going to run Tevin Coleman, which you're better off kind of just running nobody at that point. Don't play Tevin Coleman. Watch him go for like 200 yards now, but just like don't play Tevin Coleman. It makes me sad. All right, let's get into these island games. We got the Sunday night game. I mean, really just a great job, NFL. Cowboys and Eagles on Sunday night. And then on Monday night, we got Buccaneers and Giants. Are you ready for some football? Let's start with Cowboys and Eagles. The Eagles are 11.5-point favorites. Are we buying Gucci Danucci? What do you got, Pete?
I know. I read a quote. I think it was his college coach is out here saying he's a true gunslinger. He's kind of cocky. He's got a braggadocio. So, once I hear that, I mean, you got to fire up Ben DiNucci, I guess. I mean, the things of note, I think, for this game are we got the Eagles getting relatively healthy. They have Dallas Goedert back. They have Jalen Reagor back. These are their two most explosive playmakers on offense. And I think that's a big deal for them. I have very little faith in the Cowboys right now. They look like a disaster on about all fronts. I mean, DiNucci couldn't even get a second to throw. We don't even know if he's good because the offensive line is so bad. So I'm on the Eagles here, and I like how things are shaping up for them.
I'm with you. What do you think, Joe?
Pete said it. Like, we don't even have any idea, and we might not have any idea this entire game if he's even any good, because he's not going to have any time. So I'm with Peter here. I think it's the Philly side pretty significantly. Obviously, it doesn't seem like there's a ton of value here overall from a betting perspective, but if I had to choose one, I think pretty clearly. Did we pick the Cowboys this week for our super contest? That would be, I guess, us just trying to get to the top, because I'm pretty clearly on the other side, right?
I'm pretty sure we did take the Cowboys.
Yeah. All right, fair enough.
How about them?
We're going for it. We're going for like that chaos week in the super contest where like everything goes terribly wrong and we have this like weird 5-0 run when no one else has anything decent.
I believe that's called the secretary winning the NCAA pool. That's that strategy. Like, I like the mascot. That's what we're feeling with the Cowboys. Bucks and Giants. The Bucks spot in New York, 11.5 in New York. Tom Brady is good. And, listen, Daniel Jones is not. So I get the 11.5, but are we buying it? What are we going to do here, Joe?
Yeah, I'm backtracking a little bit from the beginning of the year when I guess we all knew that this defense was good, but Tom Brady's been very good also. Like the weapons that he has, like he doesn't really have to win them games, which is great. And this team just has so many different playmakers on offense overall. I don't think there's anyone on the Giants that's going to be able to like keep up. Like, okay, you're going to take away Godwin? Sure. I'm just going to go to Gronk in the red zone. He's actually been a real life tight end these last couple of weeks, which is crazy. I didn't see that one coming either. So if Gronk even like comes back and is like somewhat relevant and they're getting Antonio Brown next week, I think that this line at 11, I still want to be on the Tampa Bay side, I think.
What do you think about that, Pete?
Yeah, I'm with Joe there. I think Tampa Bay they're the most well-rounded, probably the best team in the NFL outside of the Steelers right now. Mm-hmm. And I think, the Giants are, they're not going to have Devonta Freeman. Not that he's a huge game changer, but I mean, this team is so devoid of weapons that anything matters for them at this point. So a Wayne Gallman-led run game here against the Bucks doesn't, provoke much excitement. There's no erections happening when I think about the Giants in this game. So yeah, I'm probably riding the Bucks, even though that is a big spread.
Very low T. Let's just go over the slate here real fast. I need your guys' best bet and your best play, and we'll start with you, Joe. Best bet, best play. What do you got?
Yeah, best bet. I think that I hate to even say this because all the sharps were all over this last week and I still ended up going on the Buffalo side, but I think the Jets still at this spot, even if we get Mahomes for 2 quarters, 3 quarters, I think this line is just, they're daring you to bet the Jets here. So I am in on that. Looks like the sharps are in on it again this week. I think the best play on the slate overall, I still think that it's pretty significantly going to be Kareem Hunt at 6,900. He's just the type of volume he's seeing. It's going to be last week. We probably see him in this bell cow role with Hunt coming back, with Chubb coming back. So I'm going to be involved with Kareem Hunt this week and hopefully get paid off for it.
Talk to me, Pete. What do you got? Best bet, best play.
I'll stick with the recent one. I think DJ Dallas, when you factor in game environment, price, ownership, I think he's the best play on the slate. I can't wait to go down in flames with that one. And as we were talking through bets earlier, I think that over-under in the Denver Chargers game, I like the over in that game. I think people are a little down on that, and I think that game is going to have a decent amount of points. So let's do the over there in DJ Dallas.
I like Tennessee as my best bet this week, but I'm really looking at that Eagles-Cowboys line, and it is tantalizing because, I mean, I can't believe we didn't do it at any juncture on this show. I mean, it's almost like a trope at this point, but we did not mention the line matchups, the line mismatchup in this game. We alluded to it, but we did not mention that Philadelphia's defensive line is good. And the Cowboys at some point went from the consensus best offensive line in football to perhaps the worst now. And by the way, Gucci DiNucci weighs about like 93 pounds, and I'm not sure if he's going to survive this game. Like, you need a stocky boy back there, and he is not that. He just looks like a kid that they found in the stands before the game and said, hey, son, it's like rookie of the year situation. So I'm kind of in on the Eagles. I think that they're actually a much better team than they get credit for, and they're going to put up some points, and the Cowboys will not. A couple of things to remind you of. Tilt Space is back on at its regular time. What time is that, gentlemen? What time are we tilting this evening?
6:30 p.m. Eastern time. So yeah, last week we did the halftime of Sunday Night Football. It went on through the late hours of the night. This time we get a little bit more, I guess, between the lines until we get all of these games just to completely bury us with all this wind. Then probably a little bit more outside the lines. But 6:30 tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be good. Last week, we do the show late, so we're like, we want guys going while we're tilting, so we're not just dead at 1 p.m. I mean, I promise you, we're going to have some Jimmy G or Russell Wilson teams, so we'll be able to enjoy that game at least in some capacity.
Erections for everybody, and then you should subscribe to the Line Movement NFL show. That's just something that you should do. It's a podcast, and you can listen to it with your ears. But we're going to go because we're over our time here. I'm Dieter Kurtenbach. That's Joe Holka. That's Peter Overzet. And this has been Line Movement Sunday. And we'll talk to you like an hour or two, because we're just always on. So we'll see you guys soon. But good betting and have fun with DFS today.